Hi everyone, it's me. Welcome to today's video. Now today we are going to be talking about the books that you need to have on your radar for the rest of this year. This second half of 2026 is so stacked with new releases that I feel overwhelmed, okay? The sheer amount of new release books that are coming out in September and October is it's a little overwhelming if I'm going to be completely honest. As a reader who reads so many books a month, I feel like September is going to be a completely new release reads month with the pace that we're going at. But all that to say, those are good problems to have. You know what I mean? So today we're just going to go over all of the new releases that are on my radar, that should be on your radar for the rest of this year. And so yeah, these are just the books that we all need to read before the year is done. Okay, I have just over 20 books on my radar. I've split them into two little sections for the purpose of this video because a lot of them are actually continuations of series, which is very, very, very exciting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over the continuations of series first, just very quickly, almost rapid fire style. And then after that, we're gonna go a little bit slower paced, a little bit more in depth with either the new series that are coming out or standalones, stuff like that, things that we aren't familiar with yet. So let's start with the series to continue list that have their sequels coming out in the second half of this year. Okay, I do have my iPad here with me today, kind of feeling like an iPad kid, but it is my best, most efficient way of being able to see my notes that isn't just on like a tiny phone screen. So in order of date being released for series to continue that are coming out in the second half of this year, on September 1st, the first one is The Knave and the Moon by Rachel Gillig, which is the sequel, the gothic fantasy sequel to the duology. First book was The Knight and the Moth, and this will finish off the duology. So that's very, very exciting. The Knight and the Moth was a book that I loved reading last year, so I'm excited to see how this one goes. I do know I have seen some readers get early copies of this one, Freya included, and I have heard just wonderful things about the conclusion to this duology. So this one's definitely an exciting one for me. We follow like a diviner who sees elements, symbols that can kind of predict the future through dreams and drowning, which is very, very spooky, very atmospheric, very vibesy. And we follow her quest as she gets acquainted with this grumpy knight type character. So yeah, that's The Knave and the Moon. Then on the next week, September 8th, we have Burn of the Everflame by Penn coming out. Fourth book to the Kindred's Curse saga. First book is Spark of the Everflame. Now I feel like this romantasy series has really gained a reputation of having just a really annoying main character. And I do agree, DM gets on my nerves. She is the type of character that just takes so long to come to conclusions, to put two and two together in her mind. But aside from her just coming to things a little bit slower than what I would prefer, I do think this world is so fascinating to read about. I did really love the adventure, traveling the world vibes in book 3, and I'm just excited to see where all of our characters end up. We have a wonderful found family in this one that I love, and I think it's kind of just general consensus that Luther, our MMC in this romantasy, is just perfect. He can do no wrong. So that's Burn of the Everflame. And then the next week, we're literally going week to week to week. On September 15th, we have two more. Number 1, Deadbeat, Leigh Bardugo. I'm so excited about this one. So this is the third and final book to the Ninth House series. So we have Ninth House, Hellbent, and then now Deadbeat. And I read Ninth House and Hellbent thinking it would just be a duology, but nope. I very vividly remember finishing Hellbent and after just being like, what? This is not the end. This can't be the end, but these books were being sold as like a duology box set, which really, really confused me. Needless to say, I'm excited. I'm happy that the conclusion of the series is finally coming out. I'm excited to see where our characters, Alex and Darlington, end up. But if you're not familiar with the series, it's a dark academia, kind of a magical realism fantasy based on the secret societies at Yale University, but make them actually a little bit magical, tie in demons and ghosts and cult-ish stuff and rituals and all that. It's very, very dark, spooky. I love it. I'm very excited for this one. And then on a complete different vibe, entirely on that same date, we have The Thoroughbreds by Elin Hilderbrand coming out. So this is the second book to the Academy. This one was the one that Elin Hilderbrand actually co-wrote with her daughter, Shelby Cunningham, which is so cute. But the Academy is set at a New England boarding school where we just follow a medium to large cast of characters of students, teachers, staff at the school, etc. as they go through a school year. And the school year is a little bit filled with drama. When we enter our characters' stories, we actually had a student who passed away the previous year, so we do have some characters kind of like coming to terms with that and trying to find a new normal. And there's a little bit of a Gossip Girl element tied in with this gossip app kind of a thing that gets introduced, and it is something that I would call a mildly juicy story. Like, the things that are happening are juicy, but it's told in this almost matter-of-fact way that makes it feel a little bit less juicy, but still feels just like slightly scandalous enough that you need to keep reading. To me, I would relate the first book to eating like slightly flavored, like slightly seasoned chips, where you're just like constantly wanting a little bit more seasoning. And so even if you realize the chips aren't as flavored as you would want them to be, you can't stop going for more, you know? It's that perfect balance of it leaves you continuing to crave more, so you can't look away and you get addicted to it. That's how I would describe my feelings while reading The Academy. And so I'm excited for this next one. I honestly don't know if this one is the conclusion to the series or if there's going to be a book after this one, but I guess we'll see. I actually do have an e-arc for this one, and so I can dive into this kind of whenever I want. So that's The Thoroughbreds. We're skipping a week, okay? September 22nd, we don't have another sequel coming out, but on September 29th, we have two. And these two are both kind of fun novella type books, bonus material. So September 29th, the first one is The Mirror of Infinite Endings by Stephanie Garber. This is the little novella tied to the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, which on one hand, I'm excited about because I love that world. I love those characters, Eva and Jax forever, you know what I mean? But I do think I'm slightly skeptical because the Caraval novella that Stephanie Garber released a couple years ago called Spectacular didn't really do much for me. It really just felt like fluff. It felt like bonus material. It didn't further plots of anything. It didn't give us any more character development. In my opinion, it just felt like a lighthearted, fun, fluff bonus material read. And so what I'm hoping for this one is that it doesn't go in the same direction that Spectacular went, and I'm hoping that it actually leads to something, like maybe leads to another plot in this world, another story, another trilogy maybe in this world, kind of branching off from this one. So I do hope this one doesn't disappoint me. But then also on September 29th, our other novella that's coming out is Threshing Day by Rebecca Yarros. This one has finally been confirmed to be 13 different Threshing stories in the Fourth Wing universe. So if you're familiar with Fourth Wing, we have dragons bonding with riders, and Threshing Day is the day where like the dragons choose the riders that they want to bond with, and then that's when they make that mental connection. We only really know the inner workings of Violet, our main character, and how she bonded, but this one will give us more perspectives of other characters. It does say we're going to be following our favorite characters, like characters that we already know, and seeing those intimate moments of when they bonded with their dragons. So this one does sound really fun. I know a lot of us have been speculating as to like what this bonus Fourth Wing book would be, and honestly, I do really enjoy this premise. I think it'll give us a little bit of a deeper look into our characters and how their inner minds work. We kind of started opening a little bit more to multi-POV in the third book of the series, Onyx Storm, so I'm happy and excited to see that we're continuing to go on that path. All right, next week, October 6th, we have two more coming out. Number one, Victorious by V.E. Schwab, which I did actually get an early copy of, so love that for me, but you guys need to read this one. So it's the third book in the Villains series by V.E. Schwab, which is another one that I read like years ago thinking it was only a duology, and had another surprise when I realized it was open-ended and there would be another book coming. But this one is super, super fun. It is a sci-fi, and we follow two rival students in the first book that start experimenting with near-death experiences and how that can affect you. Things go wrong or right, depending on how you look at it, and our characters end up with these extraordinary powers. Essentially, they become like what you would think of superheroes. Regular humans, but enhanced with these kind of, superhero abilities. But our characters that we're following, they're not really your typical superhero, and so they kind of go on this anti-hero path. And it's just so much fun. I love V. Schwab's writing in this series, and so yeah. Victorious is the final book and conclusion. And then also another one I actually received early, The Sixth Faction by Veronica Roth, which technically isn't a continuation of the Divergent series, but is an alternate reality version, a reimagining of the original series, and explores our characters and what would happen to them if things went slightly different. And I did read an early copy of this one. I did really enjoy it. Just felt like a blast from the past. So much nostalgia for those really fun YA dystopian reading days. So that's The Sixth Faction. On October 27th, so we skipped a few weeks, we have two more. Number one is Mark of the Warrior by Fonda Lee and Shannon Lee. I did also read an early copy of this one, but it's the conclusion to the Breathmarked duology, which is such a fun YA fantasy duology that is really highly focused on martial arts and physical combat. We have a world split in two with very different values. One side of the world really celebrates martial arts and combat, and the other side of the world really restricts it only to an elite few people who are allowed to train. And we follow twins that were separated from a young age that grow up on different sides of this wall, and we see kind of the push and pull between them. And I found this duology was just so much fun to read. And then also on October 27th, we obviously have ACOTAR 6 by Sarah J. Maas. I feel like we don't really need to explain this one or like go into plot synopsis. I think a lot of us have been waiting for this sequel for a very long time, but that's also, yeah, October 27th. And then skipping to the end of November, the last sequel that's on my radar currently is The Dragon and the Dove by Catherine Doyle, coming out November 24th. This is a third book to the City of Fantôme trilogy, which is another series that I thought was only going to be a duology, but ended up being a little bit longer. I feel like that's kind of the trend of this year, is finally completing series that I thought were duologies, but are actually trilogies. But this one is so much fun. We do have a little bit of like a, what's the trope called? Cat-mouse situation. It's a YA romantasy, but done in such a fun way. I always say if you loved Heartless Hunter, pick up this one. The first book is The Dagger and the Flame. It gives very similar vibes, but in my opinion, went on a better trajectory than Heartless Hunter did in terms of expanding on our fantasy world, diving deeper into the story, just having more interesting plot things going on. But yeah, I do remember reading The Rebel and the Witch? The Rebel and the Rose. Why am I forgetting every single book title today? This is so unlike me. But yeah, the second book, when I was reading that, I was still under the impression that the series would only be a duology, and I was so excited to see where we concluded and was left on this cliffhanger at the end of that book and was very confused. But yeah, all that to say, happy the third book is coming out. All right, those are all of the series continuations that were on my radar. Let's get into some standalones and also like firsts in series to start. So we're going back to chronological order. We're rewinding back to September 1st because, oh my goodness, there are two standalones coming out. Which one do I read first? I actually know it's going to be Taipei Story by R.F. Kuang. Obviously, I need to get to this one first. It's probably my most anticipated of this year. It's so hard to narrow it down to one because I'm so excited about so many of these, but this is a literary fiction, which I'm very excited to read from R.F. Kuang because I do feel like she is such a chameleon with her writing style. She can write epic fantasy, she can write historical, she can write satirical thriller, she can write almost like a more YA feeling fantasy as well. I do feel like she is just so good at adapting her writing style to different genres. So I'm so excited to see what her lit fic writing will be like. But this one is a bit of a coming of age story. We follow college freshman Lily, who is going to spend her summer in Taipei. She's really hoping to learn the language and just connect to her roots in a way that she never did earlier in her life, and also to be able to connect more with her like extended family, her relatives there. But she gets shocking news. Her grandfather actually passes away, and we go through her story as she grieves, as she just feels this disconnect with her family and kind of these regrets of not being able to bond with her grandfather before he passed because she never knew the language and could never really communicate with her family in a deeper way. This is a story that I probably can relate to a lot, and so on one hand, scared to dive in because I'm like, how similar to my experiences will this be? But on the other hand, so excited because I feel like I will be able to get so much out from this book. So excited about that. And then also September 1st, Scion by James Islington. So of course the author of The Will of the Many, which we know and love, but this is a sci-fi standalone. It's about, I think the protagonist is an assassin, maybe, just from the way he's described in the synopsis of this book, but he is currently kind of feeling stuck, bored with his duties. His assassination jobs just kind of feel very routine at this point, so it's feeling repetitive. He's just feeling like he's grinding at his job, and we're in this world where wealthy people have found a way to live forever. So it is a sci-fi. Did I tell you guys that? It is a sci-fi. But because resources on our planet are limited, I think he's sent to assassinate these wealthy people, to just be like, you know what, your time's out. Like, I know you found a way to live forever, but you can't live forever because we need room for the younger people to grow, you know? So that's our character, but his next job is very unexpected. And that's kind of all I'm getting from the synopsis of this book. I feel like they've kept it kind of vague on purpose. It's a story that you just need to jump into. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. I love James Islington's writing in The Will of the Many, so I'm curious to see how this sci-fi standalone is. All right, jumping to September 8th, the next week, we have Tempest by Victoria Aveyard, which is a book that I have already read, but you guys should also read. This one is a pirate romantasy. So we follow two timelines of our main character, Kat Rose, or Katrina Rose, and in our before timeline, she is arranged in a marriage with this, you know, kind of gross guy. To be honest, this really gross lord who takes advantage of her, who doesn't respect her and treat her as he should, but she was kind of thrown into this marriage because they thought that he was a wealthy lord and that he would be able to take care of her and her family. But what happens is she gets married, realizes this lord actually has like a dwindling fortune, and they set off on the seas to try and like reestablish this lord's wealth. He's a very greedy guy. Also, he just sucks. So that's our past timeline. We see her struggle through that, and then in our current day timeline, we see her after she has apparently gone through a lot. She's currently a widow. Now she is the owner of a tavern, but at the same time, she's kind of hiding from the authorities. And so between these two timelines, we see as she is constantly involved in these pirate versus empire wars. And there's a certain pirate captain and also an empire captain involved in the story. So that's Tempest. And so when we jump forward to September 22nd, we have Hollywood Ending by John Greene, which I'm so excited about because I have not read a John Greene in a very, very long time. John Greene was an author that I loved maybe like 15 years ago. Loved all of his like younger adult romance books like The Fault in Our Stars, Paper Towns, all of that. Loved that phase of reading. It was just great. But yeah, I haven't read a book from him since then. I know he wrote Everything is Tuberculosis, which is still a book that I probably need to pick up at some point because I've heard so many great things, but that is a nonfiction, and in terms of writing fiction, I don't know what he's written from that era of 15 years ago to now. But this one is an adult fiction, which is very fun. So we follow, it's a dual POV story about two rising young actors who I think fall in love. And from the blurb, it says it's an unflinching examination of the insatiable attention economy. And it's also a study on the dawn of celebrity culture. And I feel like this just sounds so interesting to me. It's something that I think has always interested me, kind of like my entire life. And so I'm really excited to read this one. I have no idea what his writing style is like now, but I'm curious. I can't wait to find out. And then also on that day, we have Winterveil by Ava Reid. So very different tone, but this is a YA dystopia fantasy. And the vibe of this is Cold War meets like an academy setting where we follow 4 different characters who are training to be spies. So at the Valeran Academy, we have our 4 brightest students in the nation. The first one is a disgraced politician. The second is a coldly brilliant strategist. The third is a former pageant pageant queen, which I'm so intrigued about. And number 4 is a female soldier who has like a really, really established past, I think. So that one just sounds like so much fun, very vibesy, maybe more of a fall read, kind of on that cusp of summer turning into fall. I feel like this one's going to be perfect, or maybe even winter. I mean, it has winter in the title. And then the next week, 2 more releases. Number 1, American Hagwon by Jin Lee. I have mentioned this in my mid-year tag, but I'm so excited to read this one, you guys. Pachinko, one of my favorite books of all time, but I read it so long ago, and Jin Lee has not released a book in almost 10 years. I think it's been 9 years, and so I can't wait. I know so much work and research has been put into this one just based on Pachinko and based on how much time has passed between Pachinko and this book. But in this one, we follow a middle-class family in Korea who have their lives upended by the Asian financial crisis. So we're set in 1997, and we probably span over a whole bunch of years, but we follow this family as they need to move. So first they move to Sydney, and then they move to Southern California where they settle. And while these new opportunities are opening up for their children, they also need to adjust to these strange lands, you know, their unfamiliar environments. And it says they must adjust to a new life in which their experience and education mean very little. So I think in this book we do have a big focus on schooling systems, on how different countries will view different levels and types of education in very different ways. And I think this one's going to be so interesting. Jin Lee is one of those authors that can teach you a lot about history, but at the same time give you really in-depth looks into the humans that are there in the story. And that's probably sounding like a broken record here at this point, but that is my favorite way of reading, consuming historical fiction. So excited for that. And then complete different vibe again. We're just flip-flopping back and forth. We have Baldur's Gate 3, Asterion's story by T. Kingfisher, coming out also on September 29th. So this one follows Asterion, who is a character in Baldur's Gate, and we follow him as he attempts to free himself from a centuries-long fate of servitude or die a second time trying. And I'm really excited about this one because I am actually currently playing Baldur's Gate 3, and although I didn't choose Asterion to be in my party, which maybe wasn't the best decision because from what I'm hearing from all the forums and everything, apparently Asterion's like one of the best companions you can have. But we have Shadowheart in our party and we have Gale in our party, who I do call Gaily Pop, and I do love him very much. So Asterion missed out. We didn't recruit him into our party, but he's in our camp. So I do know him as a character, and I am following through his story as we're progressing through the game. And so I know a little bit of lore on Asterion, but I'm excited to read this one. And I think it's so fun that T. Kingfisher is writing this book. I also love that this book is just called Baldur's Gate 3 Asterion. Like they didn't even feel like making a more creative title for the story. They're just like, you know what you're gonna get. Baldur's Gate 3 Asterion. But very excited about that one. Okay, jumping into October. On October 6th, we have 2 new releases. So number 1, The Wretched Divine by Adeline Grace. This one is an Angels and Demons story. It's a fantasy start to a series, and we're set in a kingdom ravaged by demons at war with angels. But now we have humans who are also turning into demons, which is definitely a problem. So our characters must team up to hunt down a cure capable of turning demons back into humans and kind of reversing that. And I'm really excited about this one. I loved the Belladonna trilogy by Adeline Grace, love her writing style, so I'm excited to see how this one is because this fantasy is adult versus the YA of Belladonna, so I'm excited to see what her adult writing and storytelling is like. I do know Freya has read this one and she absolutely loved it, so I'm excited for that. And then for a little second chance amnesia trope romance, I did talk about this one in my recent book haul video that I did because I did get an early copy of this book, but once again, always by Amanda Gale. So this is a second chance romance following a young woman who wakes up in the hospital with no memory of the past 6 years, only to find that she apparently married the one man she can't stand, her arrogant and infuriating former boarding school rival. You know I love a memory loss trope, so I'm already into this one. I can't wait to read it. All right, the week after, October 13th, we have Peck and Peck by Bonnie Garmis. which I honestly don't know what to expect of this one. The only Bonnie Garmus book I've read was Lessons in Chemistry, and I read that so long ago, so long ago. I actually don't know if Bonnie Garmus has written anything else, but I did love Lessons in Chemistry for its kind of quirky writing style. It had this sense of humor throughout, but also obviously dove into a lot of social commentary on like women in STEM and, you know, things that were happening in that time. And so I'm excited to see what she does with this one. I also loved the show Lessons in Chemistry, the adaptation, loved that. But in this one we follow Batter. Did I type that correctly or did that autocorrect? I don't know. It says Batter in my notes as our protagonist's name. He is in his early 20s and has never had a clear goal on what he wanted to do for a living. Living in New York City, he now wants to be a poet, and he works at a poetry publishing company called Peck and Peck. The kind of tagline for this book was, "Poetry not only represents the power of humanity, but holds the key to its survival." So I think this one's going to dive into, the power of words and how the things you can publish, even things like poetry, can affect things and, stir this change in the world. And, as readers, I feel like we know how important words are. So this is definitely a really, really significant story to tell, and I'm excited to see how Bonnie does it. All right, we have two more. On October 27th, we have To Dream in Darkness by Anne Liang, which I know I did already read, but I'm putting this on your radar, okay? That's why it's on this list. But if you loved A Song to Drown Rivers, definitely pick this one up because she has gone back to that fantasy romance with a mythological feel. But this one follows the god of healing and the god of death. The god of death is fated and determined to kill the god of healing because he's the god of death. But when they meet, healing notices that death has had a curse placed on him that is like slowly killing him from the inside. And so healing makes a bargain with him. She says, "You know what? I'm the god of healing. I can help lift this curse from you only if you allow me to live for another month. Like, don't kill me just yet." And so we follow the two of them as they interact through this month as healing starts healing death, and they get tied into all of these like celestial court things and all kinds of trouble. So that was a beautiful read. I do love myself an Anne Liang, so look forward to that one. And then the last one on my list for today comes out December 8th, and this is The Fires of December by Brandon Sanderson. So this is another Cosmere standalone. I know I'm not like completely caught up in the Cosmere yet. There are definitely still a lot of Cosmere books that I need to read. I think I'm about 15 books deep in the Cosmere right now, but that's like nothing when you look at the amount of books that Brandon Sanderson has published in this universe. But I'm always excited for another Cosmere book. So this is another one of his Cosmere standalones. In this one, we are set in a forgotten land sustained by colorful rivers of demon blood. We love Brandon Sanderson for always thinking up these creative worlds. I think he really loves colors though. I think a lot of his worlds and magic are based on light and color and everything, and I guess it makes sense because they're all tied into the Cosmere, and color and light are definitely very, very important elements. But immediately, right off the bat, love that vibe for our fantasy world. But our main character is a young woman named December who learns a devastating plague is on its way. She sails up the river Violet to warn the king's court. Oh my gosh, please tell me that we have all the different rivers, like of all the colors of the rainbow, please. That sounds so whimsical. But she needs to get people to actually believe her. So she needs to navigate all of these court politics along the way. And it does say, okay, Cosmere fans, wait for this. This makes me so excited. But in the synopsis, it says she makes new friends, like maybe a talkative priestess and a fledgling fashion designer. So if you've read a little bit of the Cosmere and get those references, then you know exactly how I feel right now. It's just so fun when you see books being tied into other books. There's just such joy in it. And I just absolutely love when authors do that. But that being said, that brings us to the end of our new releases for the rest of 2026 list. That brings us to the end of books that you need to have on your radar for the rest of this year. I'm so excited, you guys. We're gonna have so many good reads for the end of this year that I am just anticipating, that I'm so excited about, and I hope that all of these, I hope every single one of these lives up to my expectations of them. But that being said, I'm gonna leave you guys here for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know which of these new releases, or any that I didn't put on my list, what new releases for the rest of 2026 are you the most excited about. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!